We've all been there, that moment when we're in the store and somebody starts making sounds and we really don't know what they're saying. And we've all turned to somebody next to us and have asked or have said, I wish I knew that language or knew what they were saying. But today I want to teach you some steps to learn a second language. Learning a second language is daunting, but once you break it down and make it into simple steps, it becomes much easier. Personally, I have learned the language of Spanish. No, my parents didn't teach me it, and I didn't learn it in school, but instead, I lived in Peru for 10 months. Here is a book of something I collected on my travels. It's full of different money and things about Peru that I learned and visited while I was there. But today, I want to share the 3 steps that help me learn a language so that I can help you do the same. The first thing I want to talk about is failure. The second, I want to discuss consistently reviewing. And third, I'll share how to immerse yourself in a language. In order to not waste time, let's hop right into that first topic. The first step in learning a language is learning to fail. To begin, failure is uncomfortable. The Webster Dictionary defines failure as a lack of success or falling short. We all try and avoid failure. It's something that is uncomfortable and not really something we all enjoy. But failure is inevitable. Thomas Edison was once quoted saying, "I have not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that it won't work." When learning to fail, or when learning, we're going to fail often, and it's important to remember that. Third, failure is vital to learning. Use failure as a stepping stone rather than a burden. A study done by Stephen Gaillard et al., titled 10 Simple Rules for Failing Successfully in Academia, has 2 points that I really enjoyed in their study. The first point talked about keeping track of failures and successes, and the second was not compare ourselves with others. These 2 points reminded us that we all fail, but it's important to use those failures. Overall, failure is again uncomfortable, but it's also inevitable, but it's also equally essential. So now let's talk about the second step. The second step is consistently reviewing. First, the best way to review is through spaced repetition, or is also known as spaced review. Spaced review is a scheduled review about what we have learned on top of what we have currently learned. The more time and effort we put into that, the more we'll get out of it, and the more it'll be worth it. There's a website, or there's an article from UC San Diego's psychology website that's talked about spaced review. And in it, they said, using spaced review, you will be able to be more effective in encoding information into long-term memory. Next, review common grammar and pronunciation. Reviewing grammar is important so that it helps us to think less while we're speaking. That way it becomes more fluid as we speak. On that same note, it's also important to practice pronunciation. When we practice pronunciation, it helps us to say the right word. And in Spanish, for example, there's a word spelled P-A-P-A that can be pronounced papa and papa. Using this word, you can say 2 different things, potato and father. So it's important that you learn to pronounce the words correctly. Finally, it's also important to avoid overwhelming ourselves. There's an article from 31memorize.com that wrote about spaced review. Their article was titled Do's and Don'ts for Spaced Repetition Users. In this article, they talked about 2 points. The first was avoiding the pitfall of overwhelming ourselves. And second was to manage the amount of information that we review so that we don't burn out. These 2 are vital as we go forward and practice spaced repetition. Consistent review is a combination of spaced repetition, reviewing grammar and pronunciation, and avoiding overwhelming ourselves. but the last step in learning a language is often seen as the most vital. That first step is immersion. First, immersion, according to the Webster Dictionary, is completely surrounding yourself in something. So therefore, immersing ourselves in a second language means that we need to surround ourselves in that language. Find ways. It's important that you find ways to hear the language in your daily life. Next, find something for you. It's important to personalize how you do how you immerse your language. There's an article from robertsonlanguages.com titled Immersive Language Learning, and it gives several suggestions on how we can all immerse ourselves in language. The first thing it gives is traveling to that country that speaks the language. However, this is expensive and most of us can't do that. So it gives other suggestions such as learning apps, music in that language, as well as TV shows and movies in that language with subtitles to help us out. Using these steps will help us to personalize how we immerse ourselves. Finally, it's important to avoid reliance on our own language. It's easy to fall back on what we know, and so it's important that we make goals to spend time on specifically immersing ourselves in language. Overall, immersion is surrounding ourselves in something that works for us, so that we're able to avoid our own language. But now let's review the 3 basic steps of learning a language. The 3 steps to learning a language are: first, actively practicing; second, consistently reviewing; and last, immersion. I want to leave you with a quote from Frank Smith, a famous psycholinguist. He said, "One language sets you in its corridor for life. 2 languages opens every door along the way."